Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame. We just had a last-minute change, so the title is not what it was earlier. Though that is definitely going to be a worthwhile deep dive. We're going to be doing something a little lighter this time. Good-looking men get more money, women most affected. Of course they are.
Oh.
So, go ahead. Allison, are you there?
Oh, yes, I'm here now. Yeah, okay, sorry about that, guys. Just a brief bit of technical difficulties. So, we originally were going to look at the International Men's Day debate in the UK Parliament. But then I fell down a rabbit hole in the first response to, I think it was Philip Davies that made the opening arguments.
He didn't, but he was the chair of the debate. I think.
I see.
The opening statements were made by a guy named Nicholas Fletcher.
Well, Nicholas Fletcher laid it out pretty clearly.
Yeah.
He indicated all of the issues, a lot of the issues that a significant number of men are facing. And then I believe in the first response, there was a female MP who was insistent that they recognize and do a shout out, that he recognize and do a shout out to a particular initiative that was in her riding. And I'm like, okay, why is she like, right off the bat, she's like, and you must applaud these people. So I did a search on, what was it called? Give me a second here. I'm sorry. The reason why we changed the title is because that's going to take a while to explain all of the rabbit holes.
.ac.uk thing.
Yeah. This sorry guys, I got a massive headache. So the technical difficulties are in my skull. They've expanded and become physical. So the one that she did a shout out for was oh god, this is interminable, this and I know it's a really simple title. I'm so sorry. You know what? I'm gonna give you guys the information that you need at the beginning of the show, and then I will give you the name of this. Oh, here it is. A Band of Brothers. I should have known that on the tip of my tongue, but yeah. UK's initiative called A Band of Brothers. So I'm like, okay, why is she insisting that this guy give a shout out to this particular initiative? So I looked them up and I read their stuff, and of course they start off with men are 97% of the demons in society, and I'm like, oh, okay. But after that it was fairly neutral. I'm like, okay, that wasn't too bad. But why is she so insistent? Like, why is she really pushing? That just seems a little bit weird. So I did another search, and I was really freaking searching to find where these people came from and what their actual mandate is, because they're not showing it on their website. And I came across this. It is called, it's a paper, and we'll show it to you when we do this particular topic. Behavior Change Approaches for Social Norms Regarding Gender. So it's an initiative in the UK to change gender norms. So when they talk about gender equality, what they mean is removing any recognition of the positives of masculinity, that men and boys provide something unique and positive to society. Because by definition, if you recognize that men and boys provide something unique and positive to society, you have to say that women and girls don't do this thing, and you can't do that. So the gender equality initiatives always seem to wash out to men and boys provide nothing as men and boys to society. They have no unique qualities that they offer to the world as men and boys. Maybe as individuals, but not as men and boys. And so I'm like reading this, and the more I'm reading, the more absolutely creeped out about this I am. They're talking about men who've seen the light, who understand the good word. And then they mention this organization, A Band of Brothers, as one of the means to disseminate their ideology. They are learning, friends. They're getting sneakier. They're getting quieter. But the only problem is their ideology is handing men and boys a big sack of nothing. A big sack of you are all nothing. You are all worthless. And then when we get back all of the problems of that, the mental health issues, the suicide, and to a much lesser extent, the acting out, because more men are committing suicide, way more men are committing suicide, opting out of work, opting out of relationships than are ever considering taking a violent option. But when we look at all of the effects of handing men a big bag of you're nothing, which is what they're doing, this is what their gender initiative policies do, is just hand men and boys a big bag of you're nothing, and then it has obvious negative effects, knock-on negative effects, and then they say, well, we can't allow any initiatives that don't also hand men and boys a big bag of you're nothing. Like, we're going to solve the problems that we're creating with more of the thing that creates them. And it's like, they're getting sneaky about it. I mean, this is not on a Band of Boys website or Band of Men or a Band of Brothers website. It's nowhere there. Okay, you have to look for this and find out that a Band of Brothers is a bunch of missionaries for handing men and boys big bags of nothing and saying this big bags of you are nothing. And I'm like, wow, that was quite the rabbit hole to go down. And that's possibly why she's so insistent that on this day for men and boys, when we recognize their issues, specifically the issues that are caused by handing them a big bag of you are nothing, we need to make sure that they only go to those organizations that will not challenge the fact that men and boys are nothing.
Yep. And
somehow we're going to fix all that. Anyway, I just want to give you guys a heads up, and I'm like, this anytime the government gets involved, it's just like you're in this dilapidated house and you're like, oh wow, this is a really corrupt house. And then you hit a soft spot in the floor and you fall down like 5 stories into and you're like looking up and it's like, oh my freaking God, I didn't even understand the level of corruption that was occurring around me until suddenly I fell down this rabbit hole. And now I realize I'm not just in a house full of corruption. This is a skyscraper. It's all embedded under the ground, but it's a skyscraper worth of corruption. All right. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's nothing that's a bigger threat to people in power, like the state, than like a free man, that doesn't need them. And I think that this is one of the reasons why I think that trying to help men and boys is no one will observe it, no one will see it for what it is, but it is the most controversial position you can take against the state.
I'm astounded that when I've recently gone to the left-wing male advocates Reddit site, which I think they're the apostate left-wing male advocates, but that they are actually openly admitting this crap in the state. And they're openly admitting the corruption of feminist theory. Let's go put it right out there. The corruption, and I don't even want to call it feminist theory, the corruption of feminist ideology. Starting with the fact that feminists who advance feminism in science, allegedly scientific institutions, but as long as they're allowing feminism to exist, they're not really. But the feminists who advance feminism have never explained to anyone how feminism is falsified. Like, that's essential. That is foundational, central to a scientific conjecture. Is you have to ask yourself, how is this falsified? What kind of experiment do I need to structure that will falsify this belief that I have, this explanatory belief that I have about observable phenomenon. No feminist has ever done that. No feminist has sat her ass down and said, how do I falsify feminism? What would be the criteria that I would accept that feminism is false? And if that has never, that process has never happened, it is 100% unequivocally non-scientific. It is simply, and it's not even a religion, because religions are tested through time. They're empirically tested as actually functioning for the societies that have them. Feminism is a cult.
It's a
is
death
it even
cult.
a cult? It's a death cult.
It is a death cult because it's going to result in an implosion of the population and the destruction of our society. It's a death cult. They may not admit it, but that's what it is. I mean, it's not like explicitly like, well, actually, I don't even know if they could be performing child sacrifices, but when you look at how much death surrounds it and how much harm it's doing, and not just to men, right? Yeah, it's an implosive, nihilistic death cult. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does exactly what it sets out to do. And I think that a lot of feminists, or just women in general, and the simps who protect them, they are not willing to see this through. They don't see that that's happening.
Well, the average woman has average intelligence.
What?
It takes a certain amount of either intuitive or otherwise just looking at history to even grasp the possible outcomes. So, I mean, the average woman is average. They're not going to necessarily understand this. So maybe intuitively, some of them will be, have enough common sense to just reject feminism. But let's just keep it moving away from the cult rhetoric. Feminists have never told anyone how feminism is falsified. Therefore, it is not a scientific concept because it hasn't actually gone through the scientific method. It is a completely unproven. At this point, it has mounds and scads of evidence that it is not true, right? It does not follow that men in overt positions of power means men who create a society for their own benefit at the expense of women. Rather, what men in overt positions of power seems to entail in all cultures around the world is that those men use other men or direct other men's sacrifice for the benefit of their societies, which in turn benefit women, mostly, in terms of protection and provision. Every woman on the planet is in a safer place and often a more provisioned place. Maybe not more provisioned relative to her male relatives, but definitely more provisioned relative to every other man in society. So what I'm saying is you might have a situation where a family, gives their sons a higher amount of inheritance. Okay, fair enough. Usually that inheritance is going to his wife, or going to be supporting his wife, so that's why they do it. But the women in that family, if you look at women in that society as a whole, as a group, even if they have less financial resources than their male relatives, they have more financial resources and provision than men as a whole. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they do not look at this. They don't look at this. And also the assertion that men in charge leads to a society in which women are not protected and provided for is evolutionarily insane. The reason why we have these complex societies is because women need so much protection and provision during the process of gestation, lactation, and early childhood. Like, we wouldn't, if women were like tigers, they squat down, give birth, go get up 5 minutes later and go off and kill bin Laden. If they were like tigers, we wouldn't need an advanced society. It exists because women need that. And I know there's even, I think, men's rights activists who want to see this as purely social. It's not purely social. There are certain groups of animals, us included, in which a female animal needs the contribution of multiple animals to successfully reproduce. And in those contexts, they have more elaborate social systems. I mean, even female chimps don't really need other female chimps or other male chimps to have the resources to reproduce a child. They might need other male chimps to protect the territory they gather those resources in, but they don't directly need the provision of other chimps. Okay? We do. And that has created a species with a higher degree of trust, a higher degree of cooperation, because we can't reproduce without it. And it's like, the entire concept of feminism is insane. And honestly, I don't know if it quite qualifies as a death cult, because I think that it itself, I'm going to get a little bit esoteric here, guys. I think it itself is a reaction to the death of God in the face of material science. And we have never faced that existential crisis. Instead, we just shoved women in the role of God, which hasn't really helped anyone at the end of the day. Because women are people, and people need... the reason why we put God in the position of God is because God doesn't need anything psychologically to be a healthy human being, because God is not a human being. Whether or not he or she or it exists doesn't have a human psychology. Well, people need certain things to be healthy, and we're not giving those things to women. Okay, all right.
Yeah. We get into the article?
That was a long rant.
That's okay.
Yeah,
So anyway, point is, that's a rabbit hole. I think it's worth digging into, but it's going to require more of a time commitment, but I think it's worth it. Plus, by the way, Teal Deer has reached out to me and wants to do another thing on the sort of occult roots, the mystical woo roots of feminism, and the female system as they call it. So look out for that. We'll probably do it in December.
Yeah. And the reason why we're not doing it, one of the reasons is, yes, I have a headache. The technical difficulties have invaded my skull. Just trying to follow all of the digressions and rabbit holes in the debate in the UK Parliament about the Minister for Men. That's what this is. That was what this was originally about. The International Men's Day debate on the Minister for Men in UK, whether or not they're going to have one. I thought it was already decided they weren't, but anyway. So and all of the rabbit holes that is created in that debate just needs a bit more mental focus than I'm able to bring to bear today. So I apologize, guys. But I would like to remind you, because I have managed to get the monthly fundraiser up. It's at feedthebadger.com/support. And if you would please go there and put whatever you can in the hat for that, very much appreciated. More and more, when I read stuff like this, I'm realizing that the only way we're going to be able to move forward is to stop giving men and boys bags of your nothing. And there is no compatibility with providing the mental health or the support that men and boys need, not just for positive mental health outcomes, but for the ability to maintain society, which is, sort of what they're doing right now. They are something like 98% of everything that keeps the lights on and the heating and the electricity and the plumbing. You get rid of men and boys, we don't have a modern society. You get rid of women and girls, we'd probably limp along for a couple decades.
Just for the remainder of that generation, since we're going to reproduce. But it would probably be free of nagging.
Yeah, but also that they would probably get an artificial. They'd figure it out.
Yeah.
They'd figure it out. But assuming that, men and boys could keep society running by themselves. And nobody recognizes this because we're too busy handing them big bags of your nothing. Isn't that astounding? And the funny thing is, the people that are handing men and boys big bags of your nothing are relying on the very thing that they say men don't have in order for them to take those big bags of you or nothing. Because if men didn't care about women and girls, they wouldn't take those big bags of you or nothing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They just throw them in the faces of the people handing it to them. And anyways, but the only way that we are going to get these issues addressed is if we continue to hammer away at this ideology that says we can't help men, because that's acknowledging that the predominant ideology our society has decided to embrace is wrong. Well, if we can't help the people who are keeping our civilization running, that's not a long-term strategy for success. So we got to keep challenging them. So that means we need to keep creating this content. Regardless of how many eyeballs gets on it, we need to keep creating it. We need to keep lighting the signal flare, and that is up to you guys. Guys have to give us the resources to continue to do this work. Regardless of how painful, emotionally distressing, or destructive it feels like sometimes. So, feedthebadger.com/support to continue to make us suffer. Feedthebadger.com/support to continue to support our work, because it's very critical to continue it. In fact, without hyperbole, I think this is the one thing that needs to happen and needs to be talked about to solve a lot of the problems that we see in the world today. And, this is not a popular thing to say, because people want it to be politics, like the sexy politics, like left and right and communist and capitalist and all this other stuff. And there are things that are related to that, but in the end of the day, who are the two political factions in Eden? Who are the original two political factions in the Garden of Eden? Men and women. It all comes down to that. All right. So feedthebadger.com/support to make sure we can keep doing this work, and feedthebadger.com/justthetip if you just want to send us a message. Tell us that we're not throwing this stuff into the void. All right, let's get started with the article.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the article today. Mm-hmm. And we are looking at the Daily Mail. What was that?
Do a rant about the title. That'll be the first thing, I think.
What'd you say?
Rant about the title.
Oh, yeah, I guess we could rant about the title first, yeah. So this is from the Daily Mail Science section. I put that in quotes, science. And it is entitled, "It's Men Who Benefit Most from Their Looks in the Workplace and Socially, Not Women, According to Trope-Busting Study."
Can you believe how they frame this?
What?
Lookism harms men more is essentially the other way of saying this. How many years have we dealt with how awful lookism to women is to women? How much it discriminates against women who are ugly?
Yeah, and the
all of that rhetoric
on the women who are pretty.
Yeah, in favor of the women who are pretty. How much women are judged by their looks. All of that rhetoric, generation upon generation upon generation of that rhetoric. And now that we find out, once again, that the situation is actually worse for men, men are judged more harshly on their looks, there is a bigger differential between attractive and ugly men, suddenly, men get more benefit from being beautiful. Like...
Yep.
How more of evidence, like how more evidence that this is simply a way of looking at the world and not actually a description of it or an observation of what's actually happening can there be?
It's a good question.
Okay, sorry to... Let's get into it. Well, let's get into it.
All right, let's get into it. So, again, you already mentioned like the Super Chow thing?
Yes, I did. Okay, people haven't sent anything through, so.
All right. I'm just like waiting so that I can give them something for it. Okay, so.
Oh, is there a new thing?
What?
Is there a new thing in the Super Chows?
No, I don't see anything new. No, it normally comes up in my Social Stream Ninja. It's not there. And I'm looking in the Discord as well. So, okay. Article. It's an outdated trope that women only rise in the workplace because of their looks. And perhaps a new study will put this attitude to bed. The study found that men benefit more from physical attractiveness in school and the workplace than women do. Researchers from the Polish Academy of Sciences examined data on over 11,000 Americans over 20 years from adolescence to adulthood, including ratings of their looks, information on their educational and career achievement, and their earnings. They found that people who were rated as more attractive at age 15 were more likely to surpass their parents in earnings and achievement once they reached their 30s. This effect was much stronger for men than it was for women, especially in the area of education. So I don't know if you want to jump in on that right now, but
no, this is just observation of reality. Like, this is not a surprise for me because I looked at the actual studies, and this was something that was obvious years and years and years ago, and I actually had arguments with feminists over it. I said, no, actually the penalty for men is higher. And they would just, I don't know. What were they calling people back then? They'd just call me a misogynist.
Yeah, misogynist, chauvinist, sexist.
Yeah, just that, like, or a man.
Yeah.
Because that's their go-to
Pick me
insult.
didn't exist yet, but like maybe a handmaiden of the patriarchy.
No, I've been through several iterations, several generations of or feminist insults for women who disagree with them.
Yeah.
Actually, pick me is new because they're recognizing that we're not just men.
Pick me is new. I that's recent, but it's more like, internalized misogyny, handmaiden of the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe stupid woman. 50s housewife.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, no, back then they were just using plain workaday misogynist.
Yeah.
Nothing fancy yet.
Starving for male approval. Okay. I mean, I do think that what I'm wondering about, I don't know what this study's going to find, but I'll just put out there that I think that if you are like attractive as a person, you generally do better. Like, people want to be around people who are more attractive. It's just the way it is. It doesn't, it's not right or wrong. I just, like handsome men tend to do better, and attractive women do better. But I think that in terms of how a man's attractiveness is measured versus how a woman's attractiveness is measured, very few men will be considered attractive enough. So mid men and more, I guess, higher than average attractiveness men will do much poorer than average women. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know if they're taking into account that we're looking at what? If we're talking about a really handsome man, like a super handsome man, that's like the top 1%, like just in looks, right? And so even a guy who's got a square jaw and he's like in shape and everything, but he's kind of whatever. He has some flaw that makes him, above average, but not the top. Well, he would be considered below average. So he may not I guess what I'm saying is it depends on how they're measuring attractiveness in men and women. And I don't think it's the same, because I think that men are more charitable to women's looks than women are to men's, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, this is not necessarily in dating. It's a much easier statements because it's got less subjectivity. It's in school and workplace attainment that they're looking at.
Okay.
I mean, obviously in dating, men's looks, they're not really, apparently at this point, they're not really going to help unless you're in the top 1/5.
Yeah.
Perhaps 1/12 at this point. Who knows where we're at this point, but the other suggestion that someone made that I saw was, and I think it was in the patron Discord, in response to the person who actually suggested this as a show topic, was that there may be a higher differential between attractive men and mid and unattractive men in what they get as men. but that doesn't mean that women's attractiveness doesn't get them more, right? Overall. So it's just that more attractive women don't necessarily get more than less attractive women, but more attractive women get more than attractive men. So I mean,
Okay.
if you have like 5 women, right, and you have the top most attractive woman is a 5, or maybe I should put just 10 because less be confusing. You got 10 women. The top most attractive woman is a 10. You give her, I don't know, 10 apples, right? And you go down the line, and a 9 gets 9 apples, an 8 gets 8 apples, etc., all the way to the 1 who gets 1 apple, right? And then you look at the men, and the most attractive man, the 10, gets, let's say, I don't know, 50 apples. And then maybe the second most attractive man gets like 2 apples, and then every other man just gets a punch in the face. You know, there's a huge differential, but still, every woman is getting more.
Yeah,
compared
that's kind
to
of what I
the
was
average
thinking.
man.
Yeah, that's what I was trying. I mean, you put it better than me, but that's what I was getting at.
Okay, yeah, I was just. Apparently that metaphor actually worked. Yay!
Yeah, it does.
Someone give me a hand.
All right,
someone
so
send a
let's
super chat congratulating me for a successful metaphor.
I actually understood something you said. I'm kidding. Okay, so experts have argued that from an evolutionary perspective, looking attractive can be a sign that someone is suitable, fit, disease-free partner. And beyond that, people tend to rate conventionally attractive people as more intelligent, trustworthy, and talented. This is kind of what I was getting at. So I know this was supposed to be about like education and jobs, but they're kind of talking about the same thing, like what, you know, whether or not someone finds someone physically attractive, not necessarily for the purpose of dating. Like, I think people want to be around attractive people. You know, they don't have to want anything from them, but you just want to hang out. Like I know guys that want to hang out with Henry Cavill, not because they want to suck his dick, but because he's a good-looking guy, and they want to be around a good-looking guy because they feel like it makes them look better for some reason. Which is kind of the opposite of what women do. Like when a woman takes her, like, you know, like slightly less than attractive friend with her to the club so she looks better by contrast. That's not really the way that men do things generally. But
okay, I'd like to clarify something for the autists. Let's say we give the top woman 10 apples, and then we go down 9 apples to 9. So to get the right amount of apples, you'd probably have to give the top man not 50 apples, but something like 20 apples, and then the man who's a 10, 20 apples, the man who's a 9, like 2 apples, and then down, so that overall men are getting less apples, but but there's a bigger differential between the top 2 men and everybody else. All right.
Yeah.
That's how you'd have to. I put too many apples in the male half.
I follow what you're saying. I think that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. I just because I know there's gonna be there's probably gonna be some autist out there.
Oh yeah.
It's like, but that metaphor is mathematically incorrect.
I mean, I thought it was decent. But look, okay. Anyway,
yeah, let's keep going.
Let me continue. Experts have argued that from an evolutionary perspective, right, and beyond that, people tend to rate conventionally attractive people as more intelligent, trustworthy, and talented. In a new study, researchers set out to explore the material effects of these supposed biases. To do this, they pulled data from the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent Health, AdHealth for short, a long-term study following about 20,000 people from adolescence to adulthood. Some dropped out over time, so the new study includes data on 11,583 people. These figures include physical health data, demographic information, socioeconomic data, and oddly, ratings of physical attractiveness. The study participants came in every few years to answer questions for AdHealth. At each visit, interviewers were asked to rate participants on their attractiveness, a 5-point scale ranging from very unattractive to very attractive. Interviewers didn't receive specific instructions on the criteria they should use to rate participants, but since studies have shown that multiple observers tend to agree on ratings of a person's attractiveness, the AdHealth ratings probably give an accurate picture of how people view each volunteer. The team behind the study looked at how interviewers had rated participants' looks when they came in for the first visit as teenagers to how their lives had progressed about 20 years later. Physical attractiveness at age 15 made a significant difference 20 years later, even after researchers took into account other factors that are known to have effects on a person's socioeconomic status, things like childhood health, neighborhood conditions, and parents' socioeconomic position. This research aimed to look at how someone's aesthetic appeal impacts their upward mobility, but in theory, the opposite effect is possible, wrote the study's authors. Upward social mobility could result in greater attractiveness. Well, yeah, I think that's all true. I also think that, like, I don't know if this is gonna come up, but I think that in particular with men, if you are like attractive, part of what makes you attractive would have to not just be your genetics, like just how, tall you are and what your bone structure is and your physical health, but it also is your habits and your behavior and your and how that builds on that. So like if you are fit because you take care of yourself and you eat well and you work hard and and all of those things, I think that it's like it feeds back into your status and your attractiveness. So a man could have like great genetics but be like a homeless crack addict and not look attractive because he's like really thin and he's got like hair growing in weird places and he's covered in skin lesions or something like that because of how like maybe he became homeless or maybe he has addiction or something like that. So I think that like attractiveness isn't just your looks. I think it's like a bunch of, like I said, it's like your, a man is, especially with men though, because I think it's especially true of men, because a man who is low status doesn't matter what his looks are, he's going to struggle because people are going to find him less attractive if he's poor, if he's not healthy, whatever it is. So I think that does have an impact, but that's just me. I don't know if they're going to touch on that, or because if they say that like if you have good looks then life is just going to like go your way, I don't know if they're going to say that, but if that's what they're going to say, I don't think that's true. I think that it's not. It's like a bunch of different factors, But I don't know if Allison you wanted to say anything about that.
No, I'm just looking at the other thing is that when you look at maybe not educational attainment, but financial, like economic mobility, does that really capture the women who are successful at becoming homemakers? Because they manage to get into a relationship,
like women who get married and have kids.
Yeah, and honestly, in another study I'm thinking of, the women who had quote unquote higher status had more children, but they were the what happened was the higher status woman had a man who earned more than her, and the more he earned that was in addition to her, the more children she had, and according to that particular study, the higher status she was.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think it captures that dimension. Now, that's not to say that this isn't ridiculous that they're basically saying hot men benefited more, women most affected. That's just ridiculous. But the other thing is that if we just look at it in the sphere of career women, they no longer can say that their looks are dragging them down at all relative to men. So you don't have to actually look at how well women are doing as homemakers in order to be able to just counter the feminist assertion that career women are subject to lookism, because they aren't. At least not relative to men.
No, not at all. But I mean, men are not only being measured by their looks too.
Yeah, they're being measured by things that, women aren't necessarily measured as much by, or at least women are are cushioned against, which is certain levels of competency and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So I got a super chow.
Yep.
From Tobin, gives us $5. Thank you, Tobin, so much for feeding the badger. And he says, "Here is your working metaphor prize." Winky smiley
Yay,
face.
woohoo!
So your metaphor worked, and we all benefited.
Yes, it was a true communal effort, I think.
Yeah.
But thank you, Tobin. I appreciate that. And I just want to remind you all again, we are doing our monthly fundraiser. So far, nothing has gone through. Please, somebody put just $5 through. Feedthebadger.com/support. Let's crack that very terrifying zero. $5, $10. Really appreciate when someone just puts something through so I don't have to look at the big fat zero. It's quite stressful. So once again, that's feedthebadger.com/support. And yeah, let's read a little bit more of this thing. I already knew.
Yeah, I know.
I'm glad that there's more evidence of it.
Once someone becomes wealthy, they can afford nicer clothes, a gym membership, or even cosmetic surgery to enhance their physical attractiveness. For this reason, they focused on physical attractiveness as assessed at age 15. Whereas earnings during adulthood may lead to hotter hair, face, and body in adulthood, money can't influence someone's teenage looks. So by limiting the physical attractiveness assessment to adolescents, the researchers could be pretty confident that it was impacting social mobility and not the other way around. The results appeared in this month in the journal Social Science Quarterly. Breaking down the effects of these scientific hotness ratings by gender revealed a peculiar effect. Men seem to benefit more from people thinking they looked good.
Why is that peculiar?
Why is that peculiar? I know, like, do you know how rare it is that men get compliments? I mean, even attractive men. You know how good that feels? When you're a teenager, it's probably even a little bit, I don't know, like awkward or intimidating when you're like 15 years old.
But also, like, this is not peculiar. This, like, I could have told you this like decades ago because I looked at the actual studies. And the other thing is, it's only peculiar if you come to this with a preconceived notion.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
All right. For males, we observe a social mobility gradient of physical attractiveness for all three mobility measures. That is, those assessed as attractive have higher mobility chances than those assessed as average, the study authors wrote. And with each step up the attractiveness ladder, men tended to increase this advantage. Among females, the gradient is weaker regarding intergenerational educational and income mobility, and there are no significant differences in physical attractiveness categories regarding occupational mobility. The new results contradict a study from Scotland in 2013, which found that girls' teenage attractiveness was an important factor influencing education outcomes.
It doesn't contradict it, does it? Though this, like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, they say it contradicts it, but
it just says the gradient is weaker.
Yeah, they just say it's weaker.
Men.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's a contradiction.
Yeah,
did they measure boys in that same study?
Yeah, exactly. Did they measure, like, this is what I talk about with an orphan statistic. This is one of the ridiculous stuff that they do. They just measure women and girls, and then they say women and girls have it so much worse than men. And all you have to do to contradict that and say, well, where did you measure the situation for men? Oh, we didn't. We just assumed it. Oh, really? That's scientific.
Is it possible? Is it possible that complimenting a man when he's like a teenager on his looks is what makes him more successful? Like, if we agree, do we not agree that a woman that is that a woman has the power to support a man and make him capable of doing things that he didn't think he was capable of? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that could it be that a 15-year-old that women find attractive or whatever, or that people find attractive, is encouraged to be more successful as a result of that, and that men who are not are, well, they're not necessarily discouraged, but they're less encouraged because there isn't like an external, I don't know, Like there is no encouragement, basically. Does that make sense? Like you give a man a boost of confidence, and then that man, because of that, he goes on to do, more than he might have otherwise.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But here's another thought. Okay, in high school, that's when girls are less likely to judge men by their achievement and most likely to judge them by their looks.
Yes.
Right? So good-looking men will have an advantage in terms of appealing to girls at that time. A significant advantage. I mean, they do throughout, apparently, at this point. But that advantage may lead to a boost in confidence as they go further. So it's in addition to the compliment, and maybe the fact that the sexual attention from girls at a young age leads to a boost in confidence in those men.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Which then leads to success.
Yes.
Which, would be an excellent encouragement towards creating a society where young people get at least some attention from the opposite sex when they are in their teenage years. Because female wallflower, the way that more traditional societies establish it. And I'm not even talking about like traditional societies like Muslim or Asian, like East Asian or anything. Like our own traditional societies, putting together dances, trying to relatives being more involved in setting young people up so that the ones who are less, being hit by the godmother of good looks, the blessing of good looks, they aren't the only ones who win the assortative mating of high school. The average looking ones will get a little bit of attention. Maybe they won't get as much, but because they have these other like they have the social events that are created for them, not just proms, there would be regular dances in more traditional communities. And this is like dancing, like meeting at a dance or meeting at a festival put on by your community is old. Like they did that in Rome, and they would get their young people to pair up based on, if they liked each other, if they enjoyed each other's company. I'm not talking about the big patrician and later plebeian families who were all playing politics with marriage. I'm talking about like the general Roman society. They would do the same thing. They would have events where men and women and boys and girls could meet up and sort of sort into pairs. And we don't do that anymore. We don't give any assistance to young people. And the young people that this seems to really hit hard are unattractive or mid to like somewhat attractive to unattractive young men. They seem to need that extra bit of structure and socialization offered by the community to be able to be attractive to young women. You see what I'm getting at?
Yes. Yeah.
And now that we don't do it, now that we rely entirely on our ape instincts, that's not happening. And that might also correspond to a lowering in productivity among men generally, because you're not seeing this. I mean, I'm just spitballing here. It seems to make sense to me. But and that might be the complete lack of attention from the opposite sex during your teen years for young men may lead to a lowering success rate later, because it leads to a loss of self-esteem, a loss of sense of worth, and then that leads to an even higher and greater degree of benefit to the men who are more attractive. You see what I'm getting at?
Yep.
Yeah, because they get the confidence boost of being attractive to women. Of course, the one thing I will say about those men is the first difficult relationship they go through, they're usually killing themselves. Like the first long-term, intimate, like close relationship that these high flyers get into, and it goes south, and they often do in a really bad and explosive way, and they, for whatever reason, they don't survive that because they've invested a lot of their identity in the approval of women. So, I mean, this on one hand, this may be beneficial to them, but on the other hand, it may also be setting them up for spectacular crashes because they if that's what they've set their self-esteem on, the first time they get the rug pulled out from under them, and that happens a lot, they don't know what to do with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, the other men may have figured out other ways of managing to establish a positive identity based on other factors, which again, you can do in like the more community orientated arena, where the community puts on events to help young people pair up and figure out who they like and stuff like that. But like I said, we don't do that anymore. We don't really help young people with anything. And what I've noticed is that, and I honestly, like, I'm going to say this, I am not very well socialized. I have a lot of difficulty when it comes to talking to strangers. I'm like a deer in the headlights. Someone comes up to me, and that happens a lot in a small town. They're just like, "Hi." I'm like, "Oh my god, what have I done?
Don't kill me. I don't have any money. Put that knife away."
Oh, that's not a knife. No, I just like getting it. So I'm not the most social person, but I've noticed that young people are getting even worse.
Oh yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like, and they're all feral, and it's like you've completely abandoned a generation, and they don't know what to do with themselves. They're extremely phobic of any kind of interaction. They're phobic to the level that I am phobic at my worst, when I was almost like hiding in my house.
Yep.
And that's not good. That shouldn't be the average.
No.
No. Anyway.
And I've seen that too myself, when I was doing substitute teaching. But I would encourage, socialization with the kids and stuff when I was doing that. And then what was really annoying to me was people would like have all these scapegoats, right? Like they'd be like, "Oh, it's because of the lockdowns. Oh, it's because of the COVID stuff. Oh, it's because of the internet. Oh, it's social media." It's like, no, I mean, those things are not like meaningless, but I think ultimately it is like a lack of community, a lack of involved parents. It is like the fathers that are being left out of their children's lives. It is the breakdown of the family. That's the I think the number one thing, because to me, like, lockdowns and COVID and social media did not create these problems. They exist. These things exist, and you can either deal with it or not. Like I said, I was doing here in Roanoke, Virginia. They didn't really lock down, right? So when I was doing substitute teaching, I mean, there are people wearing masks and stuff, but like, it wasn't locked down. Like, kids were going to school, and when they did, they would still do all the same stuff. They go to the playground. I would encourage them to, do stuff together. The teachers were involved. It's a different animal, and it didn't stop them. And I was doing middle school, high school, and very early, like first, second grade, and I didn't see any issues with that. But I did see, like, from people I knew, this kind of stuff going on in other parts of the country. And so I think it ultimately, because, the kids here, they know who their dad is, that he picks them up from school, right? So I think I think that it is a socialization problem that there's lots of ways to rectify. And it's like you said, we used to do things together, like communities would do stuff. Like here, they have, when Halloween comes around, there's like a block party, and all the kids go, and they're all dressed up, and like, so it's like a thing they do together. When 4th of July happens, there's fireworks everywhere. People go to see them. The city has their own, but it's not even as good as some of the people who live in the area. Then what they do is even more impressive. There's, I think there's garage and like yard sales like every weekend, like, and it's all social stuff like all the time. So I think that it's just about like, we have a roller skating rink here. I've never been to it, but I know it's popular. So I think that it's all about like, when you take when you take the family and you break it up, it makes it so much harder to form community, and the kids are going to feel so much more alienated. And then the other stuff like the lockdowns and the social media become crutches that they then use to try to supplement that, because human beings need to socialize. We very few people, okay, I'll put it that way, because some of you guys are probably loners. Very few people can be an island, right? And I think most of the time they're not. Even some of the guys, I remember when I first came here, I'm sorry for going off on a tangent, but I went to this gun shop because one of our patrons mailed me a shotgun and I had to go pick it up. And so I went to this gun shop to pick it up. And I thank you for sending me that, person. You know who you are. And I went there to pick it up, and the guy who ran the gun shop was there hanging out with a bunch of other men, because it's a gun shop, so it's men there. And he had his dog there, and we were all talking and stuff. And there was one guy who goes there regularly, and they just talk about guns, and they talk about the military, because a lot of them are vets, or they're active members, or they're cops, or whatever it is, right? And they'll be talking about this stuff. And there was one guy who literally lives off the grid in West Virginia, and he hunts for food. And he still, even though he lives alone, God knows, in the middle of nowhere, probably in the hollers or something, he hunts for food, but he still comes to this gun shop to socialize with other men. So, and that always stood out for me. I thought that was so interesting. But I mean, we're not doing that now. So no. I mean, obviously it happens here, but I think that it is a really interesting situation. And I think that, again, yeah, maybe this study, I don't know. I feel like there's data missing so far.
I would say that I would like to draw the distinction between social media like Twitter and Facebook, and I don't want to say Discord specifically. I'm not calling out Discord and saying it's great, but the way that it's structured is, I think, more conducive towards forming relationships in an actual community. Because you talk to people in real life. You're not just broadcasting it everywhere, so it isn't a performance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you get into more, I guess, it's more intimate, I think, and more private.
Yeah, I understand
so I think
that. Telegram is like that too. I think that social media in general is very female centric.
Yeah, and
I think it's the way women interact. That's mostly what we see.
Is a thing like Discord, does that qualify as social media, or is it more like?
I think social media is more like, X, YouTube, maybe Facebook, Instagram in particular, stuff like that.
Yeah, and the reason why I say that, well, first of all, if you guys want to join us in our Discord, it's at badgernation.online. And there's a free area that you can hang out in. And we also do regular movie nights that you can access through the free area.
Yep.
So that's badgernation.online. But I feel like that it has more of an intimacy to it. It's more about making and maintaining friendships than Twitter. I don't know if I've encountered a friendship on Twitter. I actually met Hannah and Karen through Reddit, of all places. Both of them. That's where I originally met them. And Reddit, I think, is a bit different than Twitter somehow. Maybe because it seems to be more like those old school. Do you remember those old school threaded messaging boards?
I actually never did Reddit or any of that stuff, so no.
Okay, all right, never mind then. But a lot of people know what I'm talking about. I'm
sure they do.
I started on IRC, so and baby S's too, eh? So I'm way old school. But anyway, but what I wanted to point out is, this is something that sort of gelled in my mind after all of those discussions with the dating coach people. Specifically the ones who insist that men overcome the deficits of socialization that are being caused by our society on multiple fronts. not just that institutionally they're being handed the big bag of nothing by feminists who basically captured they've captured like these institutions that raise children, the academic institutions. So that's a vector of a lack of socialization for men. They also don't have really strong relationships.
Look at what's going on in my cafe.
Yeah. They also don't have really strong relationships with other men, which is another vector where young men are not being socialized properly. So you have all of the, and there's more besides that. You have all of these vectors by which young men today have deficits of socialization, and it's not their fault because you need another person to socialize with who's been interested in you to socialize with, right? And these dating coaches come right out of the gate and they say, well, if you're not approaching women, then you're a coward because my data that I took from a online survey says that men who don't approach women are less risk averse. It's like, well, okay, this situation is not going to change. Like, this situation is literally not going to change from tweets, from YouTube videos, from seminars, from a dating coach getting up and giving men a lecture. The only thing that's going to change this situation is those people who decide to get in the trenches and start building communities for young men. Period. Yep. And not communities that have secret agendas to hand more young men bags of your nothing. Okay?
Yeah.
Like that's the brass tacks, honest truth. Now, people like Justin Trottier, they deal with the at-risk young men. They're the ones, they have referrals from young men who are dealing with not just a lack of socialization, but severe negative socialization. So the young men who've been abused, the young men who have been raised in criminal households, the young men who the police are worried are going to become offenders if nobody gets in there and helps them. But what about the young men who are just happen to be, they have difficulty with being social because they've been poorly socialized, but they're not in danger to anyone. They're just going to quietly implode. They're quietly lonely. Maybe they're incredibly successful financially. Maybe they have talents that have brought them significant status and prestige in the working world, but they just don't have that level of socialization that allows them to be happy with, have their relationship group, their friendship group, whatever. How do you help those guys? And the dating coaches aren't going to be able to, because the problem that they're facing, this deficit of socialization, is not going to be solved by getting a bunch of men who are socially awkward to approach women. All that's going to happen are false accusations from that. The way that you solve that is by getting them to develop stronger relationships to other men, to each other. Okay? And through that process, gain the social skills that allow them to feel more confident going into the more, I guess, socially risky activity of approaching women if they want to. And because a lot of these guys are not going to be attractive and not necessarily attractive enough because the standards are so ridiculous, and they are. Let's face it, they are. A lot of these guys are not going to be successful. You might as well have the skills in place now to deal with a life in which you don't get that female partner and what you think that's going to give you, right? And incidentally, when you put those skills in place, you're more likely to get a female partner. When you have something going on in your life, and I know a lot of people are that stressful for them, that overcoming that feeling of isolation, having something going on in your life is more likely to lead to you having a woman in your life because you have a life for her to take part in. But it's what I've seen. It's what I've seen. The guys who have a plan, they have like a 5-year plan. The guys who they approach being social in terms of enjoying an activity with another person, enjoying people's company, right? So they approach being social in terms of having fun with another person, as opposed to like a lot of guys or a lot of people in general, even women. Like this is definitely true about women. They approach a social situation or a relationship with another person in terms of winning. It's like that's not what it's about. That's why I say to guys who are struggling Go to a place where they're happy to see you. You know, think about your life in terms of serving others as well. Like, what can you do to be of service to your community? What can you do to put a smile on another person's face? And what can you do to develop the skills to be motivated by that? You know, that's how you overcome this kind of loneliness, and also how you develop the social skills to, if you want to pursue having a woman. You see what I'm saying? And all of that requires people. That requires people who are willing to get into the trenches with young men and willing to talk to them one-on-one, willing to do activities with them one-on-one, willing to listen to them without applying a social theory to them, like, oh, well, this would be better if you just were conservatives. No, it wouldn't. Like, it wouldn't. Because men can't make their supposed prospective mates appreciate conservatism. Like, literally, if a man is less conservative, he may actually have more success for women. I mean, what cost is really the question. So, yeah, that's not going to solve things. You know, being a liberal is not really going to solve things. You know, being XYZ is not going to solve things. What's going to solve things is people shutting up and listening to young men and what they need and the things that they're grappling with. And not just the ones who are marginalized, are really marginal, the ones that are, you know, the police have a dossier on, but the ones who are quietly slipping through the cracks. You know, you gotta listen. You gotta shut up. And I don't see this among a lot of YouTubers or dating coaches. I don't see a lot of shutting up and listening. And I don't think that's where the solution is going to come from. Because like the feminists, they are applying an ideology and an expectation onto men instead of figuring out what those men need. They are looking at those men in terms of what they need from them. Money, belief systems, like promoting a belief system, becoming part of the ranks of whatever philosophy or ideology that they promote. It's like, no, where you start is by listening. You do the hard work. You know, day by day by day, you listen to what they are dealing with, what they're having trouble with. You know, you try to work on making a community. And like, I do this. I never feel like I'm doing it right, but I try. You know, I try really hard. And I do this. I try to make a community. I try to deal with the inevitable blow-ups because people have differences of opinion. That's the big one. People have differences in personality, and I try to deal with that. I try to be a productive community leader or facilitator and approach it from that way. I don't know if I'm successful at all. You know, sometimes the pain that I see, it's really overwhelming. And the fact that I cannot help certain things, like I can't push a button and make it so that women just appreciate men, because that's really what needs to happen to solve the dating crisis. You know, I can't do that. So what I do what I can do, which is try to help construct a space and kick the people out of it who want to turn a space into an ideological brainwashing chamber, like this a band of brothers, and just listen to the people in it, the young men in it, and what they're dealing with. And I don't see a lot of that. And like I said, I don't think the answer is going to come from any YouTuber. It's not going to come from a YouTube channel. It's not going to come from a dating coach's seminar. The answer is going to come when we start caring about young men enough to start building the communities that they need to overcome the socialization crisis. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox.
All right.
Go ahead,
well,
Brian.
It's okay. I got a couple Rumble rants, so I'm going to go ahead and read those. And let me put them on the screen. Daramuth sent us 2, so thank you, Daramuth, for the Rumble rants. One for $2 and says, technology is the recluse's heaven. Part of the reason many are their own island. Thank you. And then he gives another one and says, for $5, and says, willing to give their time without thinking they'll get something in return. Then again, being rich is the main motivation for most. All right, thank you for that. Okay, so we'll get back to the... Let me just make sure I didn't miss any super chats. No, I haven't. So we'll get back to the article then.
I do have some thank yous, by the way. If
Oh, you
want me to
do?
that.
Oh, good.
Yes,
So
I
the
do.
zero
Yep.
is gone.
You
All
guys
right.
responded, so thank you for that. Very much appreciated. Once again, the guy who cracked the zero was Richard Beer. So thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Always, I think this is like a personal challenge for him to be the first. To be the first to open the fundraiser, and he gives us $100. So thank you, Richard.
Ooh, thank you.
And Zuwam, hopefully not your legal name, gives us $25.
All right.
Can you imagine this? Like I've just doxed Zuwam.
I don't think that's his name. I'm gonna go out on a limb. I could be completely wrong.
Okay, and then $10 from AMR. That's all I'm gonna say. AMR.
All right, thank you, AMR.
Wow.
And then $50 from the Great Indoors. Thank you, the Great Indoors.
Thank you. Come again.
Yeah, we're at 185 now out of like 4,890, but we are moving, so that's good. That's to see. And once again, if you want to help out, and if my long rant resonated with you when I say it's like the solution is not going to come from people preaching at young men. It's going to come from people fixing the problem. Like you just can't preach at young men anymore. They like basically the problem that we're seeing is that young men are not integrating properly into society. What a surprise, since it's a society that gives them no role whatsoever. But regardless, they were having problems integrating into society. The answer isn't to scream at them more and say, why aren't you making people care about you? It's to care about them and to start constructing spaces in which they can talk about their issues and develop friendships with each other. It's not going to come from a YouTube channel screaming about what men are doing wrong or even what feminism is doing wrong. Although I think that helps because, challenging the fact that creating a space where you say, well, actually, it's not fair to give young men the you are nothing bag, like the bag full of nothing. That's not fair. I mean, at least it gets out there and it gets some young men thinking about that. But ultimately, I don't think that's where the answer is going to come from. The answer is going to come from constructing the spaces that help young men overcome this social deficit. But once you construct this space, let me put it this way. Yeah, Andrew Tate may say that men have some kind of value, but I don't think that he's solving anything. Can I say that?
Yeah,
I don't think
of course.
he solves a damn thing.
I think ultimately he's using this to make money, and I never claimed otherwise. And I think that the only reason why there's a market is because no one else is stepping up, or at least in the way that he has. So if you don't like Andrew Tate, then you're gonna be a part of a different solution, offer something better and something that men can actually use, because no one else is doing it. In fact, remember they did this to Peterson, and Peterson's message was far more constructive. So it's like they want the Andrew Tates because it makes it easier for them to point at that and say, look, this is what men are.
Yes, exactly. This is what men are.
Yeah.
And men deserve to get the empty bag, like that, for people to hand them the bag of nothing. like you are nothing. Here's your bag. We have no place for you. Have no place in society as a man or boy. As a young man. Period.
Right.
You may have a place as an individual who's using his individual merit to overcome his handicap of being a young man. But really, that rhetoric only really serves men who have. I want to use the word privilege, but I know it's so toxic at this point. But who have social assets.
Very few men are going to be able to take advantage of whatever Tate is selling, so it's still going to leave a lot of men out. And it's going to what men need maybe is, well, actually, this is what people need in general. I think is that they need to know that they are enough and that they can have enough. Like, it's not about Bugattis and cigars, and it's not about like being homeless like the feminists basically want you to have, and that it's about like what nobody wants to feel is resentment, I think. And I think that like what we have now is creating a climate of resentment, and I think that it you know, just for your I don't know, well-being, you have to find like gratification in what you do have, and like and be able to acquire enough. Like you know, somebody said that being rich is the main motivation for most. I don't think that's true. I think that if people knew, they could just have enough and be happy, you know. But I don't know. And
Yeah,
I think what Tate
big
does is
lesson.
he sells us a certain status, but it only works because it's also what women are asking for. So like he's only responding to the market, and the men are responding to that market, you know.
Yeah.
So
even though they have no chance of accessing it.
yeah, of course not. Yeah, it's ridiculous, right? That's what I'm saying. Like this,
Yeah.
this is an unsustainable
The big
you know, proposal. But like, I bring up Peterson because he was the one that was like, look, you know,
find something good in what you have.
Yeah,
basically.
like just make yourself like men are competent. You just got to find where your, you know, area is and just focus on that and stop worrying about like what women are asking for, because they don't know what they want. Like we've already gone through girl math when it comes to height and money. They just want to make sure that those women just want more than what their friend has. That's all. And you don't want those women anyways. So
okay, I was going to say that I think the real big question of our time, since we've resolved all of our material.
We're heading towards it. There's no avoiding it. Like
well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, we may be heading towards. I don't think we have to, because the real unfortunate thing about this is the collapse isn't necessary.
No,
it's not necessary. We just need to.
No, I mean I'm sorry. I meant to say we're heading towards like asking these very important questions. I think that people are running out of excuses in the general like discourse. They can't like keep throwing the blame at this or that. And it's getting to the point where it just comes down to men and women. And I think everyone, like on some level, they know it, and they just are afraid to confront that reality.
Okay. So what I was going to say is this. I think that the question of our age is to discover that our greatest resource and our greatest treasure is our relationships to each other. And it's going to have to start somehow with women realizing that their relationships with men are valuable. And not just this like booty calls for the top 5%. Like a genuine relationship with a man is valuable. And like that's where the future lies. Anyway, I did my thank yous. Let me see if there's any more.
I got another super chow too.
Oh, you got another super chow.
I got another super chow. Yeah. So let me bring us up. Richard Bier gives us $5. Oh, good, it all fit. This is about the limit of the characters in order to display it on the screen. Gives us $5 and says something to keep in mind is that the ideal of masculinity that it sounds like Band of Brothers is trying to promote is that of an effeminate male who is on board with getting pegged and doesn't object to his partner cucking him. So this would make Will Smith the peak example of what it means to be a proper man when he starts to wear nail polish and a dress on occasion. The math, the apples would be 55 total apples to distribute to on each side as 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 equals 55.
Okay, so I was right that 50
is a lot of
under
spurg,
55.
but okay.
Yeah, I know. Okay, well, I think that this I don't even think that they want to do something as I don't even think they want to promote that kind of any kind of relationship, even a relationship of cuckolding between men and women. What these individuals seem to be, this initiative that has co-opted the Band of Brothers, or a Band of Brothers is simply a Hydra head of it, is they appear to just want to have men and boys have nothing. Like, let's be honest. When we talk about gender equality initiatives, we're essentially saying the initiative to make it so that men have no unique value to society. Like, we don't recognize any unique value that men have. Like, when they say we're against traditional masculinity, what they really say they're against is the recognition that traditionally men had some value to give to society. Because that value is not something that women, by definition, can give to society. And that is what they don't, that's what horrifies them. That's the existential crisis that they're in. They cannot allow men to have their own unique value that women don't. Period. That they just cannot allow that. So what their initiatives do is to go out and give men and boys, particularly young men, big bags of you're nothing. Like, you as a young man are nothing. Like, you have nothing to give the world as a young man. And there's a fine distinction here, because some people will be like, oh, but yeah, this young man could. But that's a focus on their individual contribution, which again, they don't exclude women from. And in fact, they basically say that men have removed women's individual contributions to society in some way. They've hidden them or they've stolen them. Okay? That is not a contribution to society that's recognized as a result of whatever unique thing masculinity is. And masculinity and manhood is unique. There are qualities to it that women do not have. And the ideologies that talk about gender equality in terms of removing any unique qualities that men give the world will recognize that there are unique things that men do when they're negative, and they'll misidentify them as criminal because that's negative, or they'll cast things that can also be positives as negatives, but only the negatives can be attributed to men. Not the positives, just the negatives. So, for example, meritocracy, which they would term being callous. So you don't give people things based on their need. You harden your heart to people in need, and you give things based on people's merit, right? That's a meritocracy. You're not giving things to people because they need them. You're giving things to people because they've earned them. And they would point to that in the negative sense as being masculine. Oh, not caring about people in need. That's masculine. But they wouldn't attribute the positive sense of that, which is constructing a meritocracy based on what people have earned, and in the process earned for others. They won't recognize that as masculine. Just the negative, which makes no sense if you think about it, but that's the way they roll. They don't want to recognize any unique value that masculinity brings. And because of that, these initiatives are just handing young men big balls of nothing, big bags of nothing. And then they're basically saying, well, it seems like men and boys are reacting badly to be told that we have no real social space for them, or there's no place for them as men and boys in society. Well, let's tell them that more. And it's just like, it's so counterproductive. Okay, we still have a bit more of the article, right?
Yeah, there is more. Let me see if I can. I don't know. Like the Daily Mail articles can get needlessly verbose.
Should I do some more arm twisting?
A
little bit. Okay, guys.
I mean, yeah, if you want.
If you would like to join our very generous supporters to make sure that we can continue to talk about this stuff, because I don't think there's not a lot of people out there that are simply saying, no, we need to help men and boys. We can't just keep applying ideologies to them. We just need to care about their issues because they exist, regardless of whatever political position you're on. Okay? If that's a message that appeals to you, please go to feedthebadger.com/support and put a few shekels in the hat. Again, thank you to our very generous donors. Let's see if we can get it to, I don't know, $200. 15 more bucks, guys, to 200. Anyone want to do that? Just 15 more bucks. All right, let's finish off the article,
all right.
I think.
Let's keep going here then. Someone who is rated as unattractive as a teenager may bloom later on, for instance. Of course, this work is just one data point in a picture of how attractive people get along in the world. The study's authors point out that the specific measures they use to assess achievement could play a role in the results. They also note that the differences they observed are more complicated than just attractive versus unattractive. People rated as very attractive had worse outcomes than those simply labeled unattractive. So future researchers should note that these categories ought to be merged. Well, I
What?
guess
So
that's the end.
very attractive people? Let me just take a look at that again. I need to.
People, yeah. So like I guess the average is a little bit. So people who are rated very attractive, which I think is the highest, do a little bit worse than, or do they do worse than people who are labeled unattractive, which is like not the lowest, but like towards the bottom.
Mm. Oh, really? That's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like a bell curve thing. Like maybe people who are, yeah, I don't know. Maybe people who are very attractive, or men, because I don't know. It just says people rated, so maybe that includes women. Maybe they don't achieve as much because they get this sense that, I mean, like, again, it depends on how we're compiling the data. Like, if we're just throwing it all together and coming up with an average, maybe people who are rated very attractive feel like they don't have to do as much, and so they don't do as well as people who are maybe like considered below attractive. I don't know, but I do have two more, another super chow and a rumble rant. Sorry, a rumble rant. So, do you want me to read those, or did you want to do something else? Have something to say? Should I look at the comments?
I'm looking at the comments. They're basically just mocking the idea that men might have it rough, which is really weird because they're saying that, like, for example, this is RWY39R.
This best rated or worst rated?
Best. I've ranked them by best rated. It's actually rather tough to deal with our rugged good looks day after day. No one really knows what we go through getting ogled by the ladies in the office, restaurants, or even just walking down the streets. Have some compassion. It's like, well, it's not really about.
They might be making fun of the way that feminists complain, because the next comment is tough world. It's not easy being a man. Women should stop objectifying men.
Well, maybe they should, considering that 50% of young men in college and high school say that they've been sexually aggressed against, 95% of them by women. You know, I know, but they're being sarcastic, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and LVLE says we will try to control ourselves because, you know, women never do anything lewd to men.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just ridiculous.
All right.
All right. This is just typical normie crap. Nothing
it's normie shit. So okay, got a super chow rather, and a looks like a rumble rant. So Richard Bier gives us $5 and says, reason that a decimation of men maintaining the infrastructure that keeps civilized society running is easily carried out by the benevolent AI, which is likely already operational, and it is only waiting for men to get out of the way before it takes over the workload. Something along the lines in Diva Holma, Russian for two hills. Are those boobs? Where only after the majority of men are gone will the AI actually start to do anything at all. My question is why the AI has to wait if it can do something right now, though. Is it being oppressed by men who want to keep working? I don't have an answer to that question, but thank you.
I don't have an answer to that because I don't even know if this AI exists.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Because the problem is that an AI is not, like, the infrastructure jobs that keep society running require a certain type. I honestly don't think AI is going to be able to.
No, I don't think so either. I think let me put it this way. The white collar jobs are going to go first. So that's going to be women's jobs.
And creatives.
Yeah, and creative jobs. Maybe. I think that's potentially, because, like, I don't know, maybe you might be right. I know that there's, like, still some creative things that people want from a human being. Like, I've been looking at a lot of AI art, and what I've noticed is it's all starting to look very much the same. So maybe somebody will want a human hand, but yeah, I think that creative stuff is in danger. But I think the first thing to go is going to be the kind of monotonous,
White collar,
data entry,
bureaucratic.
Yeah, bureaucratic, white collar
Mhm.
stuff that mostly women do. I think that's going to be the first. And
yeah, indeed.
yeah, and then like things like labor and farming and all that, I think those will probably be the last to go.
And the reason
So-
why is because they're based on a kind of intelligence that it's actually very difficult to replicate. People, I think, overestimate what AI can do. But there's a form of intelligence that's based literally on having a physical body, a physical human body, and haptics and a haptic system, which includes your sense of touch as well as your sense of balance and your awareness of yourself in the environment. And you'll notice that when you look at AI art, it doesn't have an inherent understanding of all of that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've known, it does not have the sense of the body that you can see in human art. Now, sometimes there's like clunky or amateurish human art that doesn't know how to convey the sense of the body in a 2D space. But for the most part, like you can learn that as a person. Like you can learn to illustrate. Any human being can learn to be an illustrator because it's just a matter of time. And it's because you have that inherent ability to understand how bodies move. And I don't know, AI art just doesn't, like if you watch the AI videos, now some of them are they're just choosing the weirdest ones, like Trump eats spaghetti.
Yeah, I know.
Have you
I've seen that.
It doesn't understand continuity. Like it doesn't
Right.
understand like
That's
visual
why
continuity.
they always look like weird, like trippy dreams.
Yeah, they look like it's when I mean, really, when you think about it, when you're dreaming, that you are actually literally like your body paralyzes you, so you don't act out your dreams. So that sense of your body is gone. Right?
Mhm.
It's that working sense, that working haptic sense is gone. And that's what manufactures these bizarre, like boundaryless dreams. And but when you're conscious, you can consciously access that intelligence. And I don't think AI is going to be able to replicate that for the simple reason is that the understanding of that form of intelligence it's in its infancy. We don't even understand it. How are we going to replicate it? You know?
Yeah.
So there are things that I don't think AI is ever going to be able to do. And I like it's
I think the
one of
human brain is far more complex than like the most advanced computer we've created. It's like beyond that. But I do have another Rumble rant. I have a Rumble rant from Daramuth. He gives us $10 and just says, "Because I like you guys." So thank you, Daramuth. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
That's sweet.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Somebody put $15 on the fundraiser so we can get it to 200. Somewhere out there, put $15 on. Or three of you put $5. Okay, feedthebadger.com/support. Do we have anything else?
The pale moonlight. You remember that?
Yeah.
American Tail. Bible.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Yeah.
Yes.
You know that was basically about Jews fleeing like Soviet Russia.
Was it? I thought it was Nazis.
What?
I thought it was Jews fleeing Nazis, like the cats from Nazis.
No. They were fleeing. They were fleeing Russia, but I think it was Soviet Russia, and they were like, they don't really say it explicitly, but we know that they live in Russia, and we know that they're Jews, and we know they're coming to America. So that's all I know.
Yeah, you might be right.
I mean, I saw it like not that long ago because I'm working on a children's book, and so I'm looking at animation, specifically mice animation. So I've been watching a lot of animated movies that have mice in it, which is a surprising number. Like, like
mice are really popular.
American Tail. I had to see the sequel. I never saw it before, but American Tail. The Secret of Nim was one of my favorites. I love The Secret of Nim, although that's a weird movie. Like it's the weirdest concept.
It's another one of those movies that can, if you watch it as a kid, can seriously.
Yeah, and all the ones like Cinderella has mice in it, and The Rescuers and the Rescuers Down Under, The Great Mouse Detective. There's lots of great example. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
What?
Lots of mice and nope, nobody's put $15 through yet. Aw.
Oh.
Okay, well, we probably should.
Yeah, I gotta go pick up the wife.
Yeah, you got
Here.
Brian has to go pick up the.
Yeah, and I'm gonna
Dare I
try and
say
talk her
ball and
into
chain?
more Resident Evil, although she probably won't be able to. But we'll see. Might be able to talk her
We'll see.
into it. We've been playing Resident
Okay.
Evil 6 as a co-op team. It is a fucking blast. What a hilarious game that is. And
Okay, so anyway,
tomorrow I'll be doing JoJo again. So 9:30 a.m. in the Discord, we'll be watching JoJo.
Yep. So if you want to join, that's also I think in the free section.
Yeah, it is.
feedthebadger.com/ Oh no, not that. Sorry. badgernation.online to access the free section in the patron Discord. badgernation.online and feedthebadger.com/support to help us out, to make sure that we can continue to run not just this channel but our community. So once again, feedthebadger.com/support. And if you want to send us a message, feedthebadger.com/justthetip is the best way to do so. We receive the messages at any time and we ponder them and we will read them out on the next related show. So once again, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Send us a message so that we know that we're not screaming into the void. That there is someone out there, you know,
Yeah.
somewhere out there under the moonlight,
Pale and be beneath the pale moonlight. Yes.
beneath the pale moonlight. feedthebadger.com/justthetip. I'll do one last check.
JoJo,
And
what are
yeah,
you doing?
what was? Oh, did you have JoJo cam on?
Yeah, I do have JoJo Cam on. He's kind of like waking up.
Did
must know
anybody
the show's
comment on
ending.
Scipio cam?
Huh?
Did anyone comment on Scipio cam? Oh, I guess it was one of those.
Oh, yeah, sure they like before, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anyway, I guess we're at the final moments, and I use the
Okay.
word F, the final. So, okay. Thank
All
you
right.
all for joining, and thank you to everybody who supported. Very much appreciated. Even if we didn't get to 200, we got pretty close.
We're
So
close.
that's great.
Maybe somebody will send it
we're close.
after.
Yeah, probably. So anyway, if you want to help out, feedthebadger.com/support. And be kind to each other because we are each other's greatest treasures. Aw, that's so corny and sappy, isn't it?
Okay.
Okay.
So should I take us out now?
Yeah, take us out.
All right. Well, so if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. I hope you didn't actually go outside during Black Friday.
Wait, stop the
Yeah,
presses.
What?
We got 15 buckaroos
Oh,
yeah. It's from,
So,
I'm going
that's
to
nice.
just say Dempsey.
Thank you very much. That's really nice. Thank you.
It's very nice.
yes.
Dempsey gives us $15. I think that's a new supporter. Let me just double check, and we'll give you the thank you for
Really
being a new
appreciate
supporter.
it.
Oh yeah, really. Coming in clutch. That's great.
Mhm.
All right, just waiting for the. Oh no. Oh yeah. So he's. Oh yeah. So he's supported a couple times. Let's see
Oh,
what's.
that's good.
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
great. Thank you, Dempsey. Hope to see you around more. And thank you to everybody else who helped out. Very much appreciated again. And like I said, if you want to send us a comment after the show, tell us we're not screaming into the void. feedthebadger.com/justthetip. All right, back to you, Brian. Sorry
All
for
right.
interrupting.
Well, I already did all the things. So thanks, guys, for coming on the show. And I look forward to seeing your comments. And we'll talk to you all in the next one.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.